I was given so much reassurance this chapter on the state of like how each of the demon lords and like enemies we are going to be facing, essentially like where are we going to be getting a like presentation wise of bad guys as we go about the series. Because for the first big chunk of the series, like the first half or so, like we didn't get any villains that were like lasting and consistent. You had the first two demon lords with Beto and Sada, but both of them were beaten in the same chapter. We had Memi, but he was obviously not the case of actually being an enemy. It seemed like Sarugi almost for a while once he was first introduced, and that was resolved. But once we got to Zudaroth, and then we started moving into the further actual demon lords, it was like, okay, we got Zudaroth, but it was like, well, he is the top of this section of, whatever. I guess one of the thirds of the factions that we know of, as far as we know in the verse, within the demon world, that he's going to be somewhat of an exception if he's the head of this whole big battle that's coming up. And we've been shown a lot of personality from the demons, which has been really great, especially now the last couple chapters with the demon lords. But this was the first fight that we were going to have for one of them that was going to be actually like a lasting battle. And it was longer than I thought it was. And then the general interactions and content we got out of this bad guy ended up being way more than I expected, which I thought was really cool. So also I'm wondering, it's like there had like in terms of name pronunciation, he was calling him Yuraku Baku in this chapter, but I'm pretty sure that's just because of the way that they speak it in general, because in order for Japanese, I would assume. But I mean, like, it's Kiyoshi, like he calls him Kiyoshi Harai, like people generally call him that, but like Kiyoshi is he's a teenager to most of these people, so at the same time he's got this high potential. It's not like they're going to be like super honorable with him. And obviously it could be different scenarios, but maybe it's just me not knowing the swaps up of how the translator puts stuff. But either way, we have in the verse right now the first, I'd say, full fight first full fight for the demon lords, and like a real good display of what we're going to be seeing. Because with Jack Joe, I thought the first, like, just in the initial chapter, that was where I was like, oh cool, this is pretty good, just seeing the power and display, the new form. And then we got another chapter, last chapter, we got up and he was still fighting, and then we had them get that really sick cool lance attack. And then with this chapter, we just had a nice closeout of the villain. And I thought it was really cool because in the style of it, it displayed him way more as a warrior than as like a deranged demon. And obviously he's still a demon. Like, he saw Yoko and he thought she was still a child, and then like went for kill shot. So it's not like he's a super good guy, but the style of the demons, I feel like it's done in reverse in like humanity, because it's like there's generally most people are pretty all right. Like even people, if they're not nice, like not ever, like you're not gonna have very very often people are gonna be killers. But that seems to be the reverse with the demons, where the demons have way more people like that are hostile and way more villain like, but there's still a section of demons that don't just kind of sit in the traditional sense of the demons, but there are way more that do. And I think that it's just a cool kind of mirror of how these two sides actually operate, and it gives it so the demons can be surprising in how they present themselves and their general nature and stuff. Because as it is, like we know that they have a similar culture in their world. It's very similar to the human world in a lot of areas. It's just, at least from what we've seen, like the crazier levels are where like the actual evil looking demons seem to be in crazier events. But I guess Baku Yuraku, he's just like, you know what, I've lost, I admit defeat, and he's like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, I'm a warrior. I'm ready to take the end and go out on my L. But he also, there's a really cool thing, because Yoko comments that his wound healed up, so it's not like he can't regenerate anymore and he's just gonna die. I would assume that it's just the limitation of where he's going to be able to really keep fighting and then regenerating is just over. So in the sense of her being able just to go up and like behead him, he's and use whatever amount of power would delete the rest of his regeneration ability, that would end him. But Jack Joe jumps in and he stops him and goes about how he actually remembers a little bit about his past, and he remembered he did have a friend. And again, that's something I thought was really good because it shows that on the side of things, because even if you say you had these guys who are all for the most part evil, but when they're interacting with each other, they act normal. Obviously Jack Joe, we know, wasn't like a super hostile demon. He was like a hostile fighter, but he himself was not hostile to humans, it seems. But it's a really good showing of the depth of the connections in their verse without having to be like, oh yeah, these characters both are like they both were outsiders, blah blah. It's like, no, you had this guy who believed in a lot of this like demonic combat and like going and hunting down your enemies that you really want to fight and test, and then be the one to take their life and take down another warrior under your belt. And he's stuck at this guy who just doesn't really seem to want to fight anymore, but he's just way more powerful than him. But they end up getting along, and I think that's just it's just a really cool bit of backstory in there. And it was nice to see how he gave him his pitchfork, his trident, to Jack Joe before he left, because I thought it was neat that in their form Nihon had that cool lance, but now they're going to get an additional weapon. I had for a brief moment the idea, even especially when he's like goes over to Nihon and he like gives him the head pat and says, take care of Jack Joe for me, and starts going off. I thought maybe it's like he'll return as a character. What if he returns and then Jack Joe, in addition, now Nihon has Bakuyaraku and then gains like another form, so it's similar. It'd be like similar to his form already, slightly different design, but maybe he would have more arms, but they're smaller arms and they have different weapons, and like I don't know, the mask has the 6 eyes. That'd be really cool. I wonder if maybe that's what the trident will do. It will apply that effect at some point, so it'd be a cool reference back to Jack Joe's friend. I think that would be really sick, because I'm a big fan right now of what we're being shown of the powers. That was another thing I really wanted to get to really see, is what exactly the demon abilities were going to be from actual fights, and not just a guy who's going to show like one ability or so in a chapter. Because even with like say like like Mato and Memi, Mato had his whole black ball and he had like triple black ball, and then Memi had the energy blast was going to do. It seemed like that's just a normal thing that they do, is they just have that black energy and they blast it at stuff, or they form it into a certain weapon and do things. But I wanted to see what was the difference in the demon style of fighting. We didn't have a very wide spread of that. For a while, we were seeing more Exorcist direct combat and fighting between each other rather than seeing the actual demons. But when he starts to go and then turns around to say goodbye to them one more time, he ends up getting beheaded. And I was very unsure for like a moment of this point, just because it was like you don't see the character directly of who just killed Bakuraku and now who is facing them. But you get his shadow. You do see like a little bit of the darker energy around him, so it doesn't look like how the Exorcist and their percept power works. And Akari's hair antenna is sticking up. So unless this guy is like someone that has, is using, is an exorcist that's like using demonic power to fight demons, my guess is this is going to be Demon Lord rank 1, I would assume. Because one thing is, like, there's always the question of, like, when a character like this shows up, it's clearly hype. I was thinking for a minute, it's like, who is another character we know directly by name? Obviously, Rushihara is one of the, like, he has to be one of the other great demon lords with Azudaroth, I would assume. But if there was another person at that level, plus I doubt he would be able to manifest before Azudaroth, because everyone that is manifested now should be below Azudaroth. Unless this is going to be maybe one of the demon lords that was in the rank that was lower, but we haven't seen him, and he just saw the opportunity. But he's talking about, he's like, what are these demon lords blathering about? So it's like, is he talking below to him? Like, I would assume in rank, or is it my belief? I feel like is my most guess is it's a character that is on their side but uses a demonic power in order to kill demons. One of those characters is going to show up, and there's hints with like Shuten looking at his eyes, but we don't have anything really as like a hard character concept. The only reason is because if this has to be one, it has to be otherwise a character that is below a Zudaroth, but is out here, and maybe it's going to be who Sakaki shows up to come fight, because he's going to have to show up at some point and go at somebody, unless he goes and joins up with Tsurugi and starts fighting Sato and Furose Sada and Mukuro Ojima. I'm sure I've got most of their names hammered out like in full. Luckily, the characters in this are very distinct, so it's easier once we're given the names for me to remember. But after that point, we get just like a quick pan over to just a bunch of demons going around and some exorcist guy who's about to get taken out. But right when the moment where he accepts his death, Kiyoshi comes in, just fodders these dudes, and he's like, nicest guy. He's like, come on, man. Are you all right? You got to be careful. We got to stay alive. We got to keep going because we got to win this so we can. I want to see you at the victory party. And then he rushes off. And I thought it was really cool too that he just like inspired the guy. The guy was just like, man, this kid was able to do that, and I thought I was already this far. And he seems to get fired up to go and keep fighting. I would definitely see if there was anything he could do to recharge some energy or something. That guy looked like, well, maybe he wasn't like super at energy. It was just like clearly he was outmatched and there was nothing he was going to do about it. He needs to reconvene with some friends. But Kiyoshi goes and he gets this big ominous presence looking over at Playground. And I was kind of hoping this was going to be one of those scenarios where you thought he was going to go there and then Hydraco runs into someone else. But she's got like 3 of these dudes hung up on a swing set, like a complete and total like lynch style. It's brutal. She's hanging these dudes. It's like this was a pretty dark scene for a second, because one of the dudes, the dudes like directly on her right and left side, they look like they're still capable of maybe getting out of there for a second. They're still moving around. The guy to the far right looks like he's dead, and there's some dudes in front of her, well, I guess behind her because she's facing the other direction. But we see Kiyoshi directly get the guys off the swings, because it's like, I would assume at that point that guy's not dead. Maybe he just passed out or something. But it's like, that was just a dark scene in general to kind of open with. I thought maybe we were going to have similar ones where it's like these guys are about to get killed and she's doing something, but she's like got these guys on the brink of death already in such a like a good horror scene type moment. She's intimidating so far. I like this character. I want to know what she's gonna do. But because again, I messed up weaving back to it, is the style of powers in the verse. I really like, from at least what we've seen, is that there is a most part similar style of just like the demons have their own energy system and power system, and they're able to do it their own different types of attacks and weapons. But as well as they all seem to have their own distinct properties and natures about them that they're able to utilize their powers. Like with Bakuraku, he had 6 eyes and 6 arms, so he was able to wield multiple weapons and see all around him in all these different directions and times, and he was just such a crazy everywhere within arm's reach fighter. Well, extended because he has weapons directly for it. But as well as he had also like cool charged energy attacks that he dispersed out in different attack patterns. So again, this is another character that shows it. Like maybe her gas mask is going to be one of the tells. Maybe she makes poison, or she does like cool torture weapons. She did put up these guys to hang, so maybe that's going to be an indicator. So in the next chapter, like, I assume, though, this is one thing, I assume that he's not going to have too crazy of a fight here, because she's weaker than Bakuraku. He's ranked 5th. Hydraco is ranked 6th. So she's going to be an easier fight than what Nihon and Jack Joe had. And it's hard to say where Nihon and Jack Joe are power level wise, just because it's not like Kiyoshi was right there and made a bunch of comments on it. But I can see, at least from, again, looking at the display of it, it's like, the powers and the 3 conditions that go into their form's total output. It makes sense why they would be way higher up, but they just don't have the fighting experience and stuff right now to really utilize their self in full. That's something they're gonna have to gain as the story goes on. Whereas like Kiyoshi, this is probably gonna be like his warm up, warm up fight. Really, I mean, it. I don't want to say just that he's gonna run through it, but at the most, I see him getting like medium level difficulty. Like he maybe he'll get some wounds that take him out for like oh, Kiyoshi needs to stand by for like 10 minutes. He bandages it up. He does like an ability, and maybe he gets like I don't know, grabs the orange juice, and then he goes back to work. That's like something maybe that'd be it. I doubt even that. Maybe like 5 minutes, and this guy just eats like a muffin or something, and he gets back in there. But I just want to see mostly Hydraco do stuff. I like one of the things too is I assume at least one of the demon lords that we're gonna get in this arc is going to survive the arc and show up at a different point in the story, either as a kind of converted ally, because for a second it seemed like that was going to be Bakuraku, but no, or possibly an enemy for a later arc to return stronger. So either way, like maybe it can be one of them. I would assume a girl with a really cool design and some crazy powers is a contender, but we'll see. Kiyoshi is gonna probably beat her. I doubt with even having to like bring out like Fiat Lux or anything crazy. He's probably just gonna go through and mid differ. But other than that, comment below and tell me your thoughts are about the chapter, and tell me your opinion is on the demons. Like I really want to know what other people's opinions on their display so far. I think they've been really good at being more of like the way that they feel to me is they don't feel as much of say like demons in a biblical sense. They're similar to something as like as something you have something like Black Clover. Is their demons are more so the idea of demons from the Bible or like mythology or religious mythology where they're incarnations of evil. Whereas the demons in the series here are more so kind of like how you have demonic races in something like Dungeons and Dragons, like Fairy Tale has natural demon races that just live off on their own and they keep to themselves and they're not crazy. And this seems to be way more so of how Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi demons are, where again they have more like common than not malefic nature, and that seems to be a scaling with their power level ranking. The higher they go, it seems to be they have a higher catalyst and higher probability of being way more dangerous and evil. But it's not 100% as we saw with Jack Joe. But at the same time, it makes it so they feel more like a this is their race's culture, and this is their world's just end result of how they've survived so long. So with that, it just makes them feel more so like again a active and living race, and stuff about them changes and alters, and there's more just diversity of what you're going to run into if you run into a demon in this verse than again say something like Black Clover, where their demons are supposed to be way more often than not just these manifestations of evil that only want to kill people. The demons in here, there are those, but it seems also kind of like how you have hollows as they get higher up. There's not only as they're higher up, they're more humanoid, way more intelligent, because we have seen ones that are just monstrous that I would assume, and what we've seen, the ones that are more inhuman looking just as they go further and further seem more animalistic. But I don't know, maybe we'll get some more general species lore on them in the future. So this fight, I'm kind of hoping we get this is going to be one of those fights that split up, like we get chunks of it in a couple other chapters and we see what other characters are doing too, or we get it as like a chapter and then we see other stuff, we come back, it's like one more chapter, Kiyoshi beats him, and then he's out for like a minute, we get like a few more chapters where other characters doing stuff, then he comes back. But anyway, other than that, comment below and tell me your thoughts again about the demons and how their whole setup has been and their display, as well as what you think about the chapter itself. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the next one.